Jacqui, welcome.
Thank you.
Hey, a lot of people that listen to this show will know exactly who you are. So before we get to Jacqui the chef, I thought we'd start with what makes Jacqui happy outside of chefing.
Not a lot. No, just a joke. What makes Jacqui happy? I love being outdoors. I love the ocean.
Me too.
I love scuba diving. That's kind of my biggest happy place.
Where have you dived?
The Maldives, Bahamas.
Me too.
Where else have I been? Philippines.
Did you grow up on the coast?
Yeah, I grew up down in Cronulla.
Oh,
So,
beautiful.
Yeah,
Shiny
trash.
girl. Puberty blues.
That's me. So that's my biggest escape and happy place is, the ocean. I grew up, Dad has a boat, so we've always kind of been on that. And yeah, that's,
Do you get to do it in Sydney or mainly just when you travel?
I like tropical diving. Sydney's too cold.
It is too cold, isn't it?
Yeah, I've never actually dived in Sydney, to be honest. Done a bit up in the Barrier Reef, Byron Bay, West Coast, South Australia, but never in Sydney.
Have you been up to the reef since the coral started dying?
Yeah, I went up. When did I go up? Last year. I went up for a weekend.
Is it as bad as the docos portray?
Depends where you go. Out off Cairns, it's pretty average, but up in Port Douglas, it's a lot better. And I did a liveaboard the year before last, and it went out to Osprey Reef, and that's incredible out there. It's untouched, and it's beautiful, and it's colourful, and it's healthy and happy. So
how do they explain it away? Because my understanding it is the whole warming effect that's causing the bleaching. But is that just because it doesn't seem right that parts are super bleached and other parts aren't?
I think it's a natural phenomenon that actually happens every however many years that it happens. So I think, absolutely we're damaging it with what, our behaviours. But I think it does happen in nature by itself and it regenerates and, kind of like bushfires and things like that. Nature kind of has a way of doing that. So, I think we are definitely having a hand in destroying it. But yeah, I think it's also kind of nature's hand a little bit as well. But
that's the flip side of this whole climate change argument is that we've had ice ages, the planet warms, it cools, and but it's still pretty hard to think that we're not having a big hand in what's going on.
No. And I think you see more, like the thing that concerns me most is the rubbish and the plastic and stuff that you see in the ocean and when you're down there and
even on the reef?
Not necessarily there, but in other places where I've dived overseas, like the Maldives and Thailand and that, the levels of respect that they have for their environment are so disappointing. Like you'll be on dive boats and the crew will be chucking plastic off the side of the boat and you're like, what are you doing? This is your livelihood, and you're just destroying it.
Well, in Indo, because I go to Indo every year on a surf trip, and same thing, they literally throw shit off the side of the boat, but they for years just bombed it. They thought, the best way to catch fish is you just bomb them. You go, guys, like you're going to kill the golden goose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really scary when, it's even in like Indo with all the shark finning and all that sort of stuff. If they spun that into tourism, because the amount of divers that would come to swim with sharks is astronomical, they'd be able to turn that money over, you would imagine, in tourism instead of shark finning. So
you would think so.
It's just about education.
It happens, educate. But it all seems to happen too late. Like Indo, I went to Cuba earlier this year and they're quickly destroying that with tourism too. Same thing, like just plastic and bottles everywhere.
Yeah. It's a double-edged sword, isn't it?
They need it,
yeah,
but then they destroy it super quickly.
There's it's in Hawaii, the Honuma Bay. It was this, I don't know if you've been there, that with all the turtles.
Yeah.
And I had a friend who went back at the start of this year. I recommended going because they've got little kids, and I was like, go on, there's turtles, it'll be great. And she's like, there's no turtles there anymore.
They've gone?
They've gone because people go through and they just step on the reef. They're just walking on it and they've just destroyed it.
Yeah.
It's sad, isn't it?
It is sad. And I was going to ask you what makes you sad, and and it's a super interesting one because I don't know whether you've ever read any of his work, but Dr. David Suzuki, he's a really famous and pretty extreme environmental scientist, and he talks about humans versus other animals all the time, and that we use 6 times more natural resources than we produce every year, so that we'll be the fastest species to ever extinct ourselves. And then the world within a relatively short period of time will go back to its natural equilibrium. But if we extincted ants, then the world would implode because they're so important to the food chain.
We don't get it, do we?
We're stupid. We're very intelligent, but very, very stupid.
I saw Valerie Taylor speak
Yeah.
at the Maritime Museum. It might have been earlier this year or the end of last year. And she said, what kind of idiot would destroy the planet that sustains them? And it just stuck with me because it's so like it's true. It's
true.
like how else can,
Every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, every day. And even the so-called movements, the climate change protests and the activists, whether they're vegan activists or whatever, it's all largely, and I know there are some that are very well educated, but it's also largely ignorant and myopic, and their research comes from Facebook at best, and they know enough to be dangerous, and they're rarely fixing the root cause.
Yeah. There's no right way to do it, whether you're vegan or a meat eater or a pescatarian. No, if you focus on one thing entirely, you're going to abuse that resource. And, if all we ever eat is grains, we're going to destroy the environment growing the grains and that sort of stuff. So no matter what you do, it's just, I think, overproduction and mass consumption is our problem.
Yeah, and monocultured farming.
Yeah.
And we say this all the time. It's not about plants and animals. It's about mono and polycultured farming. Because big corporations buy these farms and they turn them into intensive farms and get maximum yield, and that play is got a really short shelf life.
Absolutely.
Yeah. A woman in a very male-dominated world of cooking, and it's probably one of the last bastions outside of, I think even stockbroking's gone past cooking. I've read tidbits about what it's been like for you, but for those that haven't read or don't know you, how hard has the journey been to rise to the top in an industry that really is dominated by men?
I've been really lucky. I mean, I've always been one of the boys. I think I will say straight off the bat, I think you have to be a certain type of female to, not to make it, but to really love it and settle in and feel like part of the team.
But isn't that wrong in itself?
It's totally wrong.
Yeah.
But, I've got a sick sense of humor and I've got a
like
foul mouth. And,
yeah.
so it's never been like, oh, watch your mouth in front of Jax or anything like that. I've always kind of just fit in, and that's what I've loved about it. I love that I can go and swear like a sailor at work and all that. And, it's
I agree.
I love that.
But swearing shouldn't matter. Like people that get upset or offended by swearing need to focus on the big things. But it's more...
You put a bunch of boys in a room together and they're going to, the conversation's going to go south eventually. I think you've got to have a thick skin. That's it. I think at the end of the day. I've never had, when I say that, there's been a few little issues that have popped up, but on the whole, I've had a really smooth run. The team that I worked with when I started my apprenticeship were amazing. Chris at Mad Cow was incredible, and I learnt so much from him, and it was a fantastic team, and there was never...
But he was a gentleman, wasn't he?
Oh,
he strikes me, and I don't know him well, but he strikes me as a gentleman.
He's like the biggest gentleman in this industry. He's such a good guy. And so I've never, I've always just kind of felt great.
Did you have brothers?
No.
Sisters?
It's one sister. Younger. Yeah.
Okay. Good on your dad.
Yeah.
Or your mum.
Dad gave me the sixth sense of humour. No, look, I remember when I left my first job, I was at a cafe when I first started for my first year of my apprenticeship. And I remember going to work at Mad Cow, and my head chef said to me, you're a girl, you're going to get thrown on pastry. And I was like, no, I won't. It's not like that. And
Why? That's because women gravitate to
Well, I think
baking?
so. I don't know. It's kind of a bit backwards, isn't it? But that was, I'd never worked in a restaurant kitchen before, so I didn't really know what I was walking into. And sure enough, when I got to Macau, I got put on pastry. So it kind of knocked the wind out of my sails a little bit.
Did you say anything?
No, because I was 21 or something, and I was just, I just stuck my head down and did my job. And I'm glad I did it now, because it gives you – a lot of chefs don't like being put in that section, so it's given me a good base to, work with skill-wise. But, I worked through there, and I did larder, and I did fish, and I did, garnish. I worked through all the sections. So it wasn't like you just got pigeonholed to that.
Yeah.
I think you have to work harder to prove that you're good enough to work the harder sections. They are more physical, and I think you do have to be able to handle the physicality of it. But, I've never felt like I can't ask somebody to help me lift something if it's, there was a thing Marco Pierre White said an article not that long ago, and he was banging on about, female chefs lifting heavy pots and stuff like that. And I was just like, what are you talking? This is ludicrous. So no, I've never had any major issues. It's been a pretty smooth ride.
But it seems a little perverse that in a world where women are historically better cooks, cook more, that the industry is just, there's not a lot of you.
No.
Certainly not a lot of you at the top.
There's a lot of women out there. They probably just are probably not as well noticed as what the guys are in the industry.
But why?
I don't know. Maybe we're not as egotistical.
Take note, boys. That didn't take long, Jay.
I think females, I don't think, have the tendency to get up there and promote themselves as much as what males have the tendency to do. I don't think. So maybe that's got something to do with it. I don't know.
Not a psychologist.
No, I'm not. But it's a really tough one to pick.
Did you always want to cook?
No, I've always wanted to have something to do with food. But
where did that come from? What did your dad do?
My dad was in the health food industry when I grew up.
What does that mean?
He used to own a health food store.
Okay.
So kind of always been around food. We used to cook at home a lot. Like I remember having cookbooks and cooking with Dad on the weekends. Yeah. Mum's like a great cook. Mum and Dad are both great cooks. So
what's your heritage?
Maltese.
Maltese?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm half Maltese.
Mum or Dad?
Mum.
Mum.
Yeah. Mum moved here when she was 5.
Yeah, nice. Found a shy boy.
Yeah.
Won the lotto.
Yeah. I don't think Nana was too happy with it. But yeah, so food's always been a massive part of my family life, just forever. I wanted to get into nutrition or food styling. That was the plan.
And what happened there?
I don't know. The nutrition was only coming out of Western Sydney Uni, and I didn't want to leave the Shire.
The bubble.
Typical. And so food styling, one of my teachers from school, she had a friend who worked for Women's Weekly, and I kind of spoke to her to figure out how she got into that, the media side of things.
What is food styling? Like for
photography food styling,
stuff,
all of that, which is still of massive interest to me. And she recommended, the friend of hers that worked for Women's Weekly recommended this course at TAFE. So I went and did that, which was a commercial catering thing, and it kind of covered all the bases. It had the kitchen component, the practical component, it had nutrition, it did a bit of everything. And I found that my favorite day of the week was the practical day in the kitchen, and I sort of started thinking, okay, maybe this is where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
And I was always too chicken because I knew that it was a boys' club, and I was really hesitant to get into it. And I think my friends just got sick of listening to me say, I'm too nervous to do it. And one day my best mate turned around and said, just shut up and do it. Just go and do it. What are you waiting for? And I did. And I went home and I applied for a job, and I got the first job that I applied for, and that was it.
Was your dad supportive?
Not really. They didn't want me to do it.
Yeah. What did they want you to do? Anything but?
Anything but. It's a tough industry and the money's rubbish and it's hard. And I think
is it rubbish all the way to the top? Like I always say this, I'm an imposter in this industry, and so I don't know the intimate details, but surely once you get to the level that you're at, the industry rewards you well.
Yeah, I'm not making any complaints about where I am at now, but it's almost like you've got to be at that top level to make
a living,
a comfortable living if you want to live in Sydney.
You're like sports people. I always say it. You know that only the top make the money, and most of you burn out.
Yeah.
You know, it seems to have a real limited lifespan.
Yeah, it's tough in the middle. You know, like the CDPs on average are at like 58, 60 grand. It's not, to live in Sydney.
It's hard.
You know, you want to go out for dinner and as a chef, you know, try new things and do all that sort of stuff. It's not an easy wage to live on. Tips make a big difference, and I suppose that's not calculated in there. But it's not. It's a lot better than what it was years ago. Like when I was on, now you look at the average and it's like I said, 58 to 60K for a CDP. I was on 42 as a CDP. So, you know, it's jumped dramatically and the conditions are a lot better than
insofar as hours and
yeah. You know, I was, let's not name names, but working like, you know, 70, 80 hours a week at one joint. And
At one joint.
And that's been like that for, you know, even at the start of Nomad, we were doing 80, 90 hour weeks, and it happens everywhere, and it's always been the norm that you work 5 doubles a week.
Some people would argue that most people that rise to the top of any industry work those crazy hours, whether you're an investment banker or a doctor or a chef.
Yeah.
So
it's across every industry.
It's across every industry. Yeah.
And it's a bit of a shame that the hospitality industry is getting vilified at the moment because, you know, my sister is in IT and she leaves for work at 6 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes it doesn't come home till 9 o'clock, and she'll be in there on a Saturday and she's not getting paid any extra to do it.
Yeah.
And, you know, if they were to get audited, of course she's working unpaid overtime. It happens across the board, but I think...
That's what's called a wage though.
Yeah.
You know, you do what you have to do to get the job done. But that said, I think there is an exploitation. And
absolutely.
Lots of young people that are potentially a little bit more vulnerable and gullible and are taken advantage of.
Yeah. It's, you know, I think you've got to have a passion for what you do. And, you know, if I work an extra 10 hours at Nomad or whatever, you know, I do it because I love my job and I do it. But I think if you've got that animosity towards your employer or you're not happy with what you're doing, or if all of a sudden you're working a bit of overtime, all of a sudden it's, you know, you're looking straight for a way to get at them.
Of course. You shouldn't be there if you've got animosity.
No, that's the thing.
You know,
if you don't like working 16-hour days, being a chef isn't for you. Being a chef in a commercial, like a restaurant kitchen, is not for you. Go and get a job in catering or in a hotel or something that might be a little bit more regimented, but restaurant kitchens are brutal. It's a tough place to be, and I think if you get into it expecting anything different, it's kind of on your head a little bit. You've got to kind of understand what the job's like. And
how have you been able to manage the whole, you work crazy hours, nocturnal hours typically, having a normal life? Like I'm assuming many of your friends work, call it 9 to 5, whatever those hours happen to be, boyfriends, the whole shooting match. It must be super challenging for you from time to time.
It's been a difficult journey. And it's really only been the last 6 months that I've sort of stopped and actually started looking after myself.
Physically or?
Physically, mentally, all of it.
What does that mean to you, Jacqui? Like changing your lifestyle?
Yeah. As I think as chefs, a lot of the time we play the victim when it comes to looking after ourselves, and it's, you know, oh, I work long hours, I'm stressed out, so I can go and get wasted after work every night and come home at 4 a.m. and go back to work the next day. And we blame the industry for the way that we behave. And don't get me wrong, I'm not on my high horse here. I'm guilty of it for
when I first met you, we went to the David Blackmore 30th anniversary. You were up almost all night.
Yeah, I was
We
up
flew
all
back
night.
from Melbourne to Sydney, and then you did a double.
Yeah.
I go, oh my Lord.
Yeah,
that's
but at least
crazy.
I wasn't one of the ones that missed the flight. No names being named.
Danny Karam.
Yeah, and didn't Corey? Corey missed the flight as
Did he?
well.
Yeah.
And Monty did as well, didn't he?
Yeah,
I
they're
think
a
there was
bit
a few
soft,
of them.
those boys.
I know.
Yeah.
See?
But you've made a conscious choice to...
Yeah, look, I got sick of feeling like shit. And I just, I had a really dark patch kind of late last year, and I'd have a day off and I wouldn't get out of bed, and I wouldn't, I was just in a hole, and it went on for months, and I knew that it wasn't good, and I kind of didn't have the drive to get myself out of it. And, like I said, I like being outdoors, and I run a lot and I swim, and and I wasn't doing any of that.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a really weird place to be when you're in that circle, and you feel like rubbish, and you know what to do to fix it, but you don't. Yeah, it was just a tough one, and something snapped me out of it this year, and I just was like, I'm sick of feeling unhealthy all the time. I blame long hours on not eating properly, and I started running again. I started swimming again. I started packing my food and taking it to work every day and having 3 meals a day, because oftentimes you would not eat till 4 o'clock staff meal, and then that was all you'd eat all day.
Yeah.
So, you put weight on and you're like, why? Like, I only eat 1 meal a day. Why am I getting so fat? What's going on here? And when you think about it, you're doing all the wrong things to your body.
Yeah.
And you end up just getting into a cycle. And, once I started prioritizing myself, things started changing, and I started feeling so much better. And yeah, so, it's only been a fairly recent journey for me, but I've started putting myself first over, if it means I turn up to work an hour late, but I've had time to go for a run, and I come to work with a clear mind, and I'm not snapping at people. I'm not angry all the time. It's completely changed my mood at work,
Good for you.
Waiters are often scared of me.
They were,
and I think
or they
they're
are?
a little bit less scared of me now.
That's nice.
No, it's made a massive difference to my life. So, I have this acupuncturist, and I call her Jesus, because she's changed my life. She's incredible.
Yeah.
So, I find that I'm spending money on things that are better for my well-being than going out and getting wasted every single Sunday afternoon, Saturday night after work kind of thing. So it gets to a point where you've got to stop and put yourself first.
What about on the mental health side? Like you mentioned that, like, is there anything you've consciously done there, or is it just the physical stuff and sleeping?
Yeah, it's just the physical stuff and sleeping. And I downloaded this meditation app. I haven't gotten into it properly.
Insight Timer?
No, Calm.
Calm, yeah, I've seen that advertised too.
And, I'd get home from work and think I was that wired that I couldn't sleep. So I'd put the TV on, and then you'd have a really restless sleep. And now I don't let myself do that anymore. If I'm having trouble, I'll put that app on and I'll go to sleep straight away. And you'll wake up feeling like you've had a good sleep instead of this, So that's a massive one. Getting a decent sleep and going home straight after work, jumping in the shower straight away and just going to bed.
Yeah.
It's, that being more physical, getting outside, getting back into the exercise and eating properly is it just switches it completely.
Were you ever in that phase where work was the one and only thing?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It has been that way for the last 12 years. It's just...
But you've obviously done some diving and things, so at least you maintain something. Like for some people, it all goes out the window.
No, I know... I know when I'm reaching my limits, and there was a point, when was it? Maybe 3 years ago, I quit Nomad. I walked out. I was like, I don't want to be here anymore. I was so stressed out. And ever since that, obviously I ended up coming back, but ever since that, I kind of know that my threshold is 6 months, and if I don't leave the country and go and do something in that amount of time, I start going loopy. And just the pressures of being in my role and, you know, any other head chef role where you're in kind of like the public eye a little bit and the pressures of being creative and having people constantly judging what you do is so difficult. And I find like that's the biggest strain on me. You know, you're writing a menu and it's like, is this good enough? Is Terry Durack going to like this? Or, you know, it's really difficult to constantly be judged.
It's like being an actress almost.
Yeah. So
Did you take it personally for a while? Or you probably still do.
I still do. Yeah, you see stuff on social media and it's like, shut up, you moron, what do you know? And it's sometimes it's really hard to not comment and not get involved in this stuff. But, you know, you just it's like you just got to realise that sometimes you find people that it was it would have been the end of last year. We had a table of gentlemen in. They were from India and they'd seen my episode on MasterChef and they'd come into Nomad to eat just because of that, which was really cool. But they wanted to talk to me and I'm notoriously like super shy and I don't like exiting the kitchen to talk to people. But, you know, they'd ask. So I went over and they were like, oh, the food was really great, blah, blah, blah. And then they said, just wanted to let you know, though, desserts aren't really your strong suit. And I was like, what?
Thanks for the feedback.
I was just flabbergasted. I was like, well, you just raved about how much you love the food. And what makes you think that it's okay to just bring somebody down? Like, I don't know. It's an interesting one. But no. But with regards to the travel thing, I do it. I go when I want to, and the owners of Nomad are amazing like that. They know me and they know what makes me tick.
Yeah.
And they know when I'm at my best, and sometimes you just got to do it. I cop a lot of grief for it, but
why? Like, this is the thing, and I think this is where the whole industry needs to change, that to have someone for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, and then for them to burn out and then walk away from the industry altogether, surely people are getting smarter and saying, you know what, this amazing asset to my business needs 2 weeks off, 3 weeks off every 6 months. And then she'll come back and she'll be wonderfully productive and happy and healthy. And that's a good decision for the business, as opposed to this old school mentality of just being literally at the coal face, working to the bone until you fall over and end up hating the thing that you loved in the first place.
I don't know why more people, like I speak to people and I haven't taken a holiday in 3 years and I haven't done that.
Like a badge of honour. Like, you're a fucking idiot.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Exactly.
Literally. And it's really boring.
Yeah.
Like, where are you getting your experiences from if all you're doing, and how are you imparting that in your cooking and all those kinds of things too?
Every time I go somewhere, and even if it is the Maldives where the food is rubbish, you come back and you've still learnt something. There's always something. And even if it's just the fact that you've refreshed your brain and an idea does happen to pop in that didn't have room to work before because you were just so stressed out. I find that funny that people give me so much grief about going on so many holidays. It's like, you know what? I work my ass off.
Yeah.
I can afford to do it.
Yeah.
And why not? I only live once. You don't, there's no other round two.
Yeah.
I'm not going to take my money to my grave with me. So I might as well blow it while I got it.
No, you're not blowing it. You're investing it.
It's experiences.
Things are experiences.
Yeah.
You know, it was interesting. I shared with my team something this morning. It was some of the words that Steve Jobs spoke about just before he died. You know, I think he was 56 when he died, like so young.
Yeah.
And like, he was worth $7 billion, something crazy. That's probably worth 70 now, his shareholding. But all of the things that he spoke about, you know, even with food, that if you don't look at food as being medicine, then ultimately you're going to have to take medicine as your food. And, you know, that it's not about chasing money. It's about what makes you happy. And that's what we should be imparting to our kids. And it is about looking after yourself. But no one seems to get that.
No, I find it funny. It's not funny, but people will judge me on my spending habits. Like, you'll go out for dinner, and like I was recently in New York, and it was like, why you spend how much money on lunch? Like, what did you? I'm like, yeah, I went to a great restaurant. I had a great time. I had a few cocktails. I'm happy. Like, you know, what if that's my value and that's how I value spending money? And
Better than a picket fence in the burbs,
exactly,
if you ask me.
Exactly.
Yeah. What about the balance part, though, Jacqui? Back to, does it worry you, and this isn't meant to be a sexist statement in any shape or form, about how you continue with your career at the top of, the food chain and balance relationships, if you ever have a family and all those kinds of things, or you just live in the moment and don't think too much about those things?
I think you just live in the moment, and when it comes up, it comes up. I mean, I've sacrificed a lot of relationships, not just romantic, but, friends as well, and missed family events and all that sort of stuff because of the job. But, I was just about to pack it all in and move to New York. For a relationship, I think it's one of those things that when it comes up, or if it comes up, you just decide in the moment whether or not it's worth it, or it's something that you want to pursue. And I don't know, you can't really. Yeah. I think I'm very impulsive, and I'm very in the moment, and I do what I think my heart tells me to do at the time. And if it means you've got to. Now I prioritize that stuff a lot more than what I used to. I'm not afraid to say, hey, this is what I want to do with my life, or I want to go to this thing this weekend, and I don't care if we've got 300 people booked. There's staff there that will do it. I used to have this, it's my baby, I can't leave it thing, and I didn't for the first couple of years. I was working every single service, and I wouldn't take a step back from it, and it's super unhealthy to do that.
And that's just the ego control freak in us all.
Absolutely, yeah. But I think once I learnt that it's about establishing systems and all that sort of stuff, and training your people and having you be confident in your team, that gives you that opportunity to be able to say, I'm not going to work Saturday night anymore. I'm not going to be there. And I before the fire, I had kind of set up with my head chef Sam that I'm not going to work weekends anymore, because it got to the point where I'd been doing these Friday, Saturday night services every weekend for 6 years, and my brain had just absorbed so much stress that I was just getting angry. Like I'd call the pass, and the smallest little thing had happened, and I'd just flip my lid. And it's like there's only so much of that. That's, you're turning 350 people over Friday, Saturday nights. It's hectic, and it's so stressful. And, he's 26, 27.
Sammy,
he's fresher. Sammy, it's like
6 years for you, buddy, and then we'll renegotiate.
I think he and I are both not big talkers. So it got to the point where I knew he was a little bit, on edge, and I was on edge, and I was like, we need to sit down and nut this out. And he's like, I feel like you're not into it at the moment. I was like, I'm not. I'm super stressed out. My head's not in it. I've had enough of working these shifts. And he's like, I don't mind doing it. I love doing these services. So, sometimes you just got to open your mouth and talk about what's not right in order to get what you want out of it. So now Sammy does the Saturday.
That's good. And he's probably doing an awesome job.
Yeah, he does a great job.
And you need to let them go, you know, like Anthony does it to us. He's off for 2 weeks at the moment. Like, he knows that the only way that everyone else grows is to let go of the helm for a while, even if people make mistakes from time to time.
People will make mistakes. It's going to happen. But,
Fact of life.
If a chicken's overcooked, it's not the end of the world.
We are cooking food, all of us.
No one's curing cancer. Yeah. It's not, the way that some people kick on about stuff.
Maybe we are.
Maybe we are. Maybe. Yeah.
Back to Steve Jobs,
There you go.
We should get paid a whole lot more. Dr. Jacqui.
I'm going to send this to the boss.
How do you think about food then? Like, Nomad is iconic. It's beautiful food. Is it as much about nutrition as it is taste, or is it all about the art and the taste?
Well, I don't think I factor nutrition into the cooking. For me, food, but in saying that, food is nourishment.
Yeah.
And, we should eat for enjoyment. I don't think we should just be eating to live. That's always been a big thing for me. I love food. It's community, and it's.
But they're not mutually exclusive, though.
No.
the most nutritional food in the world could be the tastiest food in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. How it kind
All
of
that
pans
amazing
out.
meat you cook.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice plug. For me, flavor is everything, and generosity, and I want people to come in and feel, without sounding like a dickhead, like they've had a big warm hug. Like, food is about family and all of that, and it's about love. And if that's not in food from the ground up, it doesn't translate to the plate. So I hope that's what people kind of get out of eating at Nomad, and that they feel from my food.
Yeah.
Because it's the most important thing about it. That's kind of the biggest compliment anyone could ever give me from, is saying that they can feel the care and the love behind the food.
Yeah. Get it. And what about the whole dichotomy of price versus provenance, and that balancing act of having the best produce, but also having a customer base that are prepared to pay for it, and shareholders that need to get a return on their investment, and all those tricky issues?
It's a tough one. We buy well. I'm not prepared to compromise on quality for price. I think Nomad's a pretty approachable price range. It's not cheap, but I don't think we've priced ourselves out of the market.
Not for what it is. No.
But I think, everybody is so concerned about provenance and sustainability and what they're eating these days. And I don't think a lot of people are knowledgeable enough to know that they need to pay for that as well. It's, you can go and buy a battery chicken or something for $6, but what's the flavor going to be like for starters? I could buy a super cheap bird and put it on the menu at Nomad and charge you $25 for it or less.
And it'll probably give you cancer.
Yeah, probably, definitely. But are you going to then complain that the chicken tasted like nothing and you're not going to come back to Nomad because it was average? It's spending money on quality produce is, it's something that kind of has to be done if you want the end product to sing, basically. And, we haven't really had a great deal of kickback, but I imagine there are places that do get, complaints about prices and stuff like that. It's a tough one, but you got to, if that's what you're after and that's what you're concerned about, you've got to be prepared to pay for it.
Yeah, I really hope that we're entering a phase where people are prepared to pay more, that we do go back to a society where experience is just as important as assets, and the understanding that if we eat good food now, that, to Steve Jobs' point, that you don't have to pay for doctors and illness later in life, because it is absolute cause and effect.
Yeah. I'm reading on eating meat. It's by Matt Evans.
Don't know. What is it?
It's just basically about the ethics of farming. And it's really interesting. And he's got a farm down in Tassie, I think. He used to be a food reviewer and restaurateur and stuff. And it's just, basically about the ethics of factory farming and
the lack of.
Yeah, and all that sort of stuff, and how we treat our meat and the way that people view meat and animals, and things in a supermarket are just meat, but they don't have an understanding of what it was before it became meat, and the practices behind it, and what they're willing to pay for it. And it's a really interesting read. It's fascinating.
And we've had this conversation. We had Joel Salatin on a couple of weeks ago, who without doubt's the most pioneering sustainable farmer on the planet, and all sorts of different conversations with different people around all of that city folks are so disconnected from death and what actually the food chain is, that no matter what you eat, something has to die.
Yeah.
You want to eat just crops, understand that the fertilizer that goes onto those crops is made from animals.
Yeah.
People I'm
just
sorry,
don't understand
vegans,
it.
but there's no way that you can eat something that hasn't involved animals dying.
It comes at every point.
It's nature.
Yeah.
It is nature, and it needs to live in unison together. And we again, like, I'm so against all of the industrialized and intensive farming practices and the belief that that's the only way we can feed 7 billion, let alone 9 or 10 or 11 billion where we get to in the future. I just don't buy. I think until we revert back to eating nutritional food and stop producing food that is full of calories and no nutrition, then we are fighting a losing battle.
Yeah. Well, he was saying that he was at one farm and they're killing 160,000 chickens a day at this just one particular farm. And they've bred chickens out to just be this flavorless, textureless
nutritionless thing.
And just because it's
cheap protein.
And people take it because it does absorb the other flavors and you can chuck it in anything and it is just cheap protein and it's become the animal of choice.
Yeah.
But it's like, at what cost are we doing this? It's insane.
There's a flip though, Jacqui, and I reckon, and I've spoken about this before, the fashion industry is a really good analogy, and fast fashion, which came so fast with the advent of Zara and H&M and those kind of organizations where, the kids, I can call everyone kids these days.
I said something about the younger generation.
You can't say it yet. You're way too young. I can say it to anyone except my dad. But they were just mindlessly buying fashion and wearing it for a night or a week or a month and then letting it go without any repercussions. There was an article I read on the weekend about the secondhand clothing industry is now bigger in the US than the fast fashion industry, $38 billion industry. And I go, that's a sign that people are genuinely not just talking about this shit at a dinner party because it's nice, but they're doing it with their dollars. And I think that's super encouraging.
Absolutely.
But food needs some big changes.
It really does.
Because people talk about it, but then Coles and Woolies and IGA are still busier than the farmers markets and the Whole Foods and places like that.
Unfortunately, I think at the moment it costs more money to eat well than what it does to eat
in the short term.
Yeah. If
until
we
you
as
get
a
sick.
whole, but I think if all of us as a whole got together and started, buying from, farmers and all that sort of stuff, the prices would eventually drop. But at the moment, it's just that kind of getting it there.
And government started incentivizing people to eat healthy rather than funding pharmaceutical companies and big medical companies. We won't go down that rabbit hole. We'll be here for hours. For the few people, and there's a bunch of people offshore that haven't had the joy of going to Nomad, describe it.
I always have a hard time with this question. I don't know why.
Really? You got to get this down.
I know.
Pat.
I should have my speech sorted.
We're going to rehearse it right now. You got 3 goes at this.
Nomad is a very big restaurant.
How many seats?
180.
In Surry Hills, which is
Hills.
Super cool suburb of Sydney for those that haven't been.
Lots going on around us now at the moment. Basically, our kitchen is all about the fire. Big, beautiful wood fire oven, big grill, and the food kind of just works its way around that. Food that I grew up with, flavors that I grew up with, just generous plates full of flavor is kind of how we work it. It is probably a little bit Mediterranean influence, but I wouldn't say it's just definitely down that path. But yeah, it's just food cooked with love. We've got our hands. It's important to me to have our hands in the processes from the ground up. So we make a lot of our own breads, cheeses, charcuterie. We do all of our charcuterie in-house, yogurts, all that sort of stuff. So, I think it's nice to be able to create something unique from the ground up. So we're very big on that.
And some relationships with some really cool farms like David Allison's.
Yeah. We buy our pork from Matt out at Melinda Park when we're doing our charcuterie, and it's nice to be able to work directly with these people and go to the farms and see how Matt's out there patting his pigs, and it's nice to know that you're working with people who do prioritize looking after what they're we can't bash on about it in the restaurant and then not actually support it that. When so we do a lot, like with Marty at Cook's Co-op, and it's important for us to work closely with people. It's like you'll call Matt up and say to him, I need a fattier pig or I need a leaner pig. And it's like, how often you can't just call your butcher up and be like, hey, Pete from Vic's, I need a really lean pig tomorrow. It's, you know, but Matt will breed them. Like he'll work them to the specs that we want for depending on what we're doing with it. If it's a cut going on the menu or if we need fattier pigs for charcuterie or whatever. So it's, you know, it's pretty cool to be able to have that dynamic with someone to be able to, you know, get to that point.
No, it's super cool. What happened with the fire? You almost burned the house down.
Yeah, we did burn the house down.
What went on?
There were 2 fires. It's looking like it
Two
was
fires at the same time.
Yeah, well, electrical. It's looked like it started in the office.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think when we've got the fire crank in and turned the exhaust on, it sucked it in through the kitchen
During
and into
service?
the ceiling. No, it was 10:30 in the morning. I was notoriously half an hour late for work, so I missed the ignition.
And did it literally go up in flames or did it go up into the ceilings?
They started noticing in the office first, you know, when you burn plastic and you get that stringy
smell,
sort of, they noticed that and came out of the kitchen and was like, hey, what's going on? So it had been burning in the office for quite a while before anybody noticed anything. But it did burn through the ceiling, unfortunately. So there's a lot of structural damage. But the majority of it is water damage and smoke damage.
Because all the sprinklers went off?
No, from the fireys. They were pumping water in there for a good hour in through the exhaust. So, yeah, the kitchen, a lot of the equipment's just gone.
Yeah.
We lost all of our stock, a huge amount of stock. It was so depressing to see. I had actually teed up Oz Harvest to come and pick it all up because the cool rooms were on. They might have been off for maybe an hour. You know, they were shut. Temperature was fine. But once I spoke to the insurers and the risk assessors, they wouldn't let me offload it because of the smoke. Because of all the soundproofing that burnt, all the smoke was toxic. So they were like, it's just not worth it. So to see all of that food
from a waste perspective,
it was heartbreaking. Like I actually was close to having tears in my eyes, and I'm not a crier. It was just to see that was just, we threw out, it was like about close to 300 kilos of charcuterie cured. So, you know, that's cured weight. Raw weight, you're looking at 500 kilos plus of meat just gone. And the labour in it as well is just
heartbreaking.
It's really sad to see. I didn't think it was as bad as what it was standing out on the street looking at it. You know, you have little, as soon as the sprinklers go off, the fire brigade's there. So, you know, you've had little things happen that are nothing things, but, you know, you've got to go through the motions that happen in every kitchen. So, you know, I'm like, I'll be back in there in a couple of hours. We'll just clean it up. And then it just kind of kept dragging out. And
then you've been closed for how long now?
Be a month on Friday.
Yeah. Before I talk about the reopening or the temporary reopening, nothing to do with the open fire at all, yeah?
No, we're not thinking so. Yeah. It's definitely looks
just in case
like
the regulators are listening, just relax.
Relax.
Everything's good.
No, we'd actually had the exhaust cleaned out 2 days prior to the fire happening. So, and we are.
Well, there's a waste of money.
Yeah, I know. We're on the phone to them. No, we have like a pretty tight system with that. The exhaust, it gets cleaned 8 times a year. Like it's 8 times a year from the external contractors, and then we get up there and clean the exhaust panels every night ourselves. Yeah, so it's, you know, we're on top of it. It's got, you know, from our end, there's nothing more we could have possibly done to prevent what went down. So, yeah, the fire has definitely, you know, shot through the exhaust after its original starting point. But, you know, I think it's just comes with the territory.
Yeah, I get it. But you're talking months now. So you're reopening across the road in the old Long Grain side?
Yeah.
Where Arana's just been?
Yeah, I think it's Jock's fault we're in there. I walked past the day of the fire and they saw me walking past and dragged me in. And
what, for a feed or to cook?
Just for hugs to start out with.
Nice.
And then the whiskey came. But no, they were really incredible. They had the fire last year at Blackwood, so they know what's up with it and you know what the process is. And Jock said, you know, we're out of here next week. We finish up. Why don't you guys take it? And I jumped on the phone to the owners and said, is this something that we would think about doing? And just kind of snowballed from there.
Yeah.
You know, we're heading into our biggest trade period, and to miss out on that is insane.
I can imagine. So when do you reopen? What's the?
So we should hoping to get the keys at the end of this week,
Yeah.
and then we're aiming for 1st of November reopening. So
And then you'll be there November, December.
yeah, so we're looking March-ish. We're hoping to be back on the pans in Foster Street, but you know, all dependent on builders and all that sort of stuff. But that's our goal at this point. Yeah.
And it will be business as usual. No, this isn't a catalyst to reinvigorate Nomad.
No, you know, we obviously, you know, we've got to redo the kitchen in Sydney, and the back part of the dining room as well is going to need some attention just because of the damage that was done. So no, like we love our little home. It's, you know,
it's not so little.
No, we love our giant home.
Sure, this isn't some Jewish stock take, Jacqui. You know, need some new cooking equipment.
I have been asked that, but no. Yeah, so no, not at all. You know, we will, you know, there might be a few little cosmetic differences in the kitchen. I'm actually gunning for a bigger fire. But yeah, no, long grain will be, you know, it's going to be different.
Very
obviously.
different layout. Yeah.
We don't have the fire there. And as I said before, like that is the heart of our cooking at Nomad. So it's writing a menu for that has been a bit of an adjustment. You know, I've been cooking with fire for the last 8 years. So it's kind of just my happy place now. It's how I love to cook. It's kind of my only way to cook.
Yeah.
So having to retrain the brain to write menus without that it's been interesting.
And you're taking short grain, the bar downstairs?
It's not there anymore.
Really?
No.
What do they do? Make it into a storeroom?
Yeah, basically. There's a lot of storage down there.
Used to be
There's
really
so
cool.
much more space than Nomad. It's great. I love it.
Yeah.
The kitchen's massive. They've got a prep kitchen.
Private dining room. Have you got a private dining room at Nomad? I've never seen it.
Foster Street, no.
Yeah.
But once we reopen, we are going to make space for it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so there'll be an actual space for a private dining room at Long Grain, which is nice. It's probably one of the biggest things we get asked about on Foster Street now. So, you know, we've got that option now, which is good.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And Melbourne's in the wings, I hear?
Melbourne is in the wings. Not official yet, but, you know, we're very close to locking down a site down there. So, yeah, it'll be our second baby.
In the next 6 months?
That was the plan. It might be delayed a little bit now because of Sydney.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll definitely be delayed a little bit, but, you know, we're kind of hoping for, you know, a mid next year.
Same magical formula, just different city?
Yeah. You know what? It's going to look very different to Sydney.
Do you think you have to treat the diner down there different to Sydney?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think so. You know, I love Melbourne, but I haven't spent enough time down there to really kind of get into the culture of it. But I think Melbourne folk are definitely more involved in the dining out scene.
Definitely.
I think, you know, Sydney people are very weather dependent and it's all about that. You know, as soon as the sun comes out, they disappear, or as soon as it starts raining, they're too cold to go outside. We fluctuate so much. As you know, when seasons change, it dies off really quickly.
Good point.
And I think Melbourne kind of just goes with the flow. Like that doesn't stop them. Nothing stops them down there. So, which is good. I love it.
Yeah. And do you think that's it for the group, or is there grander plans in the wings?
There's so many grand plans. I can't even keep up with them. You know, no, I work for very ambitious people, and so, you know, I don't think that'll be the end of us.
Who are the owners? I don't know them.
Al and Rebecca Yazbek.
Okay, cool. And they're good.
Yeah. You know, I love them. You know, they're mates as well as colleagues and employers, and you know we've traveled together. You know, I enjoy spending time with them. We get on well. We have the same we have the same views about food and eating and hospitality and all that sort of stuff. So it's nice to work with people that are on the same page.
Yeah.
They don't get in my way with food, which is great.
They just run the business.
Yeah,
and,
they've never ever been ones to say, I don't like that or that's not right or, change the menu. They just let me do my thing. Even when I was finding my feet when I first took over, they didn't comment. It was just like, do what you need to do.
Yeah. Do you think, I get the ambition thing, do you think part of it, the growth, is as much about the reality that it's very hard just to run a standalone venue these days without any economies of scale?
You need the economy of scale. Like, even if you look at, you come to Melbourne Cup, for example, and Merivale's got these massive advertising campaigns out 3 months before, and it's, as a smaller business, it's like, how do you compete with that? Very
difficult.
We're lucky in that, we are a bigger business. We employ, I think there's 60 of us. And it is, we were on track to having our biggest year yet this year, which is so cool, like 6 years in.
In a bad economy too.
Yeah, we were like up 10% on every other year. So it's such a shame that this happened this year, because it's just knocked the wind out of our sails. But, we are lucky that we have the size that we do, because it allows us to, do a bit more. But smaller businesses, I don't know, it's easy to see how they do collapse, and it's pretty scary.
It is scary. Do you think that's where the industry's heading though? Do you think the Merivales and the Solitels are going to continue to really grow, or do you think the likes of you guys and the Huberts and the Finks are going to keep it at least a little honest for the bigger guys?
Well, you see all these bigger guys, and
honest is the wrong word.
No,
by the way,
but no, it's like Est is closing, and all these high-end 3-hat.
Est is closing?
Est, yeah.
Oh, Est,
yeah.
I was going to say Est.
No, I hope not.
Yeah.
But no, you see, these companies that do have these finer dining venues, they're closing down, and like I'm assuming, I don't know what they're going to replace it with, but there is a massive shift towards more casual dining, and especially in this economy that people aren't spending $400 on a meal as frequently as what they would have done so before. So, I think it's
they probably open a Toddy's and go, I put a lick of paint and vacuum the floor and it's full lunch and dinner
heaving.
Every day, and
That's
it's heaving. And I do think that there is that shift, and and then there's the balance of places like yours and even Fred's that Merivale have got, where people still will spend money, but they want the story and they want the excitement, and they want the celebrity chef or the chef that is entwined into the business.
Yeah. I think there's so much good food around now at a reasonable price point that you almost don't need to go and drop that amount of money to have a good meal anymore. You definitely don't need to, I don't like doing it anymore, and I don't do it as frequently as what I used to. I used to think that was good eating by going out and I just spent $450 on a meal, and now I know that I don't need to do that anymore to eat really well. And I almost think the focus on provenance and produce is kind of forcing a lot of venues to think about what they're buying now, and you are getting better quality produce at more venues, because it's something that people focus on now, and it's something that people want. So
it's a tricky time. It's a tricky
Indeed.
time. Are you guys worried about the economy at all, or it's just you do your thing, and as you were saying before, you were year on year above any other year you'd done? And
it's always a concern. We had a really hard winter, and we've never really had a hard winter. Nomad's always been a very warm, cozy winter venue, and that's always our strong season. So we were definitely very worried there for a little while, because it's the first time we really felt it.
What do you think it was? Election?
I got no idea.
Economy changing, house prices
it's just
down.
A bit of everything.
Everything, yeah.
People just didn't want to spend the money, and
Donald Trump threatening to blow up the world.
Might have had something to do with him. Americans.
Americans.
Yeah.
They're all fleeing.
Yeah.
They're coming here.
Yeah.
Lucky you didn't move to New York.
Yeah, lucky. Yeah, I don't know, but like I said, we were having our biggest year, and I think Nomad food is approachable food. It's not fussy. It's tasty. It's not excessively expensive. It's somewhere you could go every week if you wanted to and not break the budget.
I'm sure you got many people that do that.
We do. We have some really beautiful regulars, and it's it's nice to see them in there. So I think as long as you're staying honest with what you're serving, I think you're always going to have a loyal following.
Yeah.
That's I think that's how I play it.
Nice.
And that's how
How do you keep getting your inspiration? Is it through travel or dining at other places in Sydney and Melbourne, or reading, listening?
Travel is probably my big one.
Did you see anything recently in New York that really...
You know what? There was some really incredible places, but dining in the States was a bit disappointing. It had been so hyped up, and then I got there and I was pretty disappointed. There are some, like Estella was incredible. That's probably my favorite place in New York. But LA as a whole was pretty.
But LA as a whole is disappointing.
As a whole.
As a WHOLE rather than a whole.
There's not a lot of places serving lunch there. It's just brunch everywhere you go. It's just, I don't want eggs. Like
it's a funny city.
Yeah. There's a lot of venue like that, these big name chefs, and then you go and eat there and it was just disappointing food. Extravagantly expensive and disappointing. So I think, in Australia we have the best food in the world. Like you travel and you come back and you can be so thankful that you come here and have the restaurants that we have and the diversity that we have and the chefs that we have, and I don't think anything tops it.
Certainly not on a per capita basis.
No.
Yeah, we punch way above our weight.
Yeah.
And I think so many people are inspired by what you guys and girls all do, and the produce that we produce.
Yeah. But as far as inspiration goes, I think I'm not the type of person that can just sit down and write a menu. It's like I'll start off with an ingredient and I'll be hell-bent on turning it into something, and then that won't work, and then I'll end up doing something completely different with it. It's kind of just a bit of everything for me. I don't know. I couldn't pinpoint it.
No recipes, no, just more intuitive.
Yeah.
Do you capture them though, Jacqui? Like when you create a recipe so that when Sammy's there on Friday, Saturday night busting his poor little ass, that he knows exactly how you cooked it, or is there creative license? Like that.
I'm very just make it taste nice, which is not great on a large scale kitchen like Nomad. If I try to write a recipe, it doesn't work out. Whereas I'm just like, I can stand there and chuck stuff in and look at it, but as soon as I try to do that with a pen and paper next to me to document it, it doesn't. It's like I lose my whole train of what I was up to. But no, we do have everything's in recipes, and everything's pretty well documented there. But there are some things that it's kind of difficult to write a recipe for, and you do need to rely on the instincts of a chef to be able to bring something to the table. You're talking about produce that is going to be different every day. An avocado one day is different to the one you're going to crack open the next day, and you've got to. I find a problem that I have a lot is chefs not tasting food, and I'm like, and they'll say, but that's what the recipe says, and I'm like, I don't care. Taste it. When I was working on sections, the first thing I'd do is come into my fridge and I'd pull everything out and I'd try it, and I'd want to know what the person the day before had done, because if I got in trouble serving it, it was it was going to be on my head if it was shit.
Yeah.
So that's always my thing. Plus, it's a sense of pride in what you're doing. If you've made a recipe of whatever it is, I want to taste it to know that it tastes good, just to know, to develop my own palate and to know what's going on. So that's something that I really struggle with that I have done recently, just trying to – how do you teach that? I don't I don't know how to teach that. It's a really tough one. Yeah.
What about teaching the expectation around food? Like you talked about avocados there, because this is something we face all the time, is that we live in this Instagram world where even a steak needs to look like a supermodel without realizing it comes from an animal and every animal's different and all those things. Whereas the number of times we will get a chef sending something back that's perfectly okay, but aesthetically not supermodel standard is becoming all too frequent.
Yeah.
And it's a problem. Like when you talk about waste and all of these things that are really important issues, but sometimes the reality of behavior doesn't seem to be there.
No. I've had chefs say this piece of meat is too small, or this doesn't look like what it's supposed to look like. And I'm like, just like I look different to what you look like, it's, it's nature. You can't control it. And as much as, you work with people who do, exemplify quality, and sometimes there's only so much you can do. So if, a beef cheek comes in and it's too small, well, then let's just put two small ones together, because that's, that is what you've got to deal with sometimes. It happens, and it's not until we get to the point where everything is genetically modified and coming out of a packet,
forbid.
which
I'm out of here when that
heaven
happens.
forbid.
Yeah.
But it's we should kind of embrace these little inconsistencies and stuff, because that's how we know that what we're eating is not
modified.
Yeah,
the imperfection of
Exactly.
nature. Is there anything that would make you quit this industry?
I've thought about it a lot of times.
Other than fatigue?
You mean to go and do something else?
Yeah.
Or I don't know. I think if I were to ever leave the kitchen, like I said before, I'd love to get into photography and food styling. That'd probably be my path, I think, if and when I decided that I didn't want to do this anymore.
Mark Best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Hey.
Snapping at your heels, bestie. I don't. It's kind of a thing that I often worry about, because I can't use a computer. I'm useless with all that sort of stuff. I'm like, what do I do if I decide to chuck in a towel? What else am I good at? It's a genuine concern of mine, because I'm like, I can't do this kitchen 16-hour-a-day business thing forever.
Not forever.
I'm
no.
33 and it's already killing me. Like, I used to be able to do 5 doubles back to back, and I'd just sleep for 12 hours on Sunday and I'd be back at it. It destroys me now. Like, it's crazy how quickly that it hit me.
But that's a compound effect too. Like,
Absolutely.
I don't think that's just age. It's the fact that you did it for so long that all of a sudden it's like, oh my God,
Enough's
this has
enough.
caught up with me.
Yeah. I definitely feel it so much more than what I used to. I don't know. I worry about that sometimes, but I figure, this career sort of happened without me trying.
To think too much.
The next thing that comes along, I'll go become a scuba diving instructor.
I was going to say, why don't you have a
next,
scuba school and Maldives?
No. I'd love to get my license and do it, but I don't think I have the patience to deal with people in like a potentially life or death situation.
Oh, that's what some of your diners think you're doing,
If they do. Yeah.
Well, for now, you got enough on your plate.
I definitely have more than enough on my plate at the moment. It's going to be a very hectic 6 months for us.
It's awesome. So 1st of November, you're looking at opening. What's the street again? It's Foster
Commonwealth.
Street. Oh, it's Commonwealth Street.
I
Yeah.
don't
What's
remember
the
a new
address?
85 Commonwealth.
85 Commonwealth. But just look up Nomad. Yeah.
We've drawn a map. We're going to put a map in the window. It's Foster Street. So if you
it's not
can't
that
find
far.
it, it's just up the hill.
Just up the hill. Just listen for the booming voice of me
screaming
the
at
crazy
the
shy girl.
We've called it Nomad up the road. So literally, you don't have far to go.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thanks heaps for coming on, Jacqui.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure too.